Hello, thank you for being here. I have something resembling a script for the first time, so we'll see how this goes. Spoiler warning, a big one for this author, Tamara Pierce, this series, The Immortals, and the Tortollan world in which these stories take place. I have just finished my reread of the Immortals Quartet, and I have not yet started Tempests and Slaughter. Tempest and Slaughter was published in 2018 as the most recent book by Tamara Pierce, and the only one I haven't read yet. In this video, I am not summarizing the stories or going deep into details about plot, world, or other characters. I want to unload some of my thoughts and my theory about Numair before I do that. I plan a later video dissecting everything after I read Tempest and Slaughter. This will make the most sense if you've read the Immortals series, more so if you like the series, but I will do my best to provide enough context if you are currently completely unspoiled on these characters and stories, and I especially thank you for being here if that is the case. Hi Rosie, I knew she was going to come in here once I started talking. Can you go lay down on the bed, please? Please go lay down. Last time I said I don't know why Tamara Pierce chose to focus on Numair's backstory, and to be clear, this is not a critique of Tamara Pierce or her writing. This is my analysis of Numair because he didn't make sense to me as presented in the Immortals series. In order for this series to kind of straddle a middle grade young adult genre space, I think a ton of Numair's character depth got chopped in the revision process. That is one of the conclusions I have come to after this read through. I think he made sense for Tamara Pierce, and part of my theory now is that Tempest and Slaughter was a chance for her to offer up what was lost before. That is what I'm hoping for. Anyway, when you read The Song of the Lioness as the first published series by Tamara Pierce, some of the cracks are very visible from its transition from a single adult novel to a young adult quartet. And I think that may be true for The Immortals as well. The second published series, still relatively early in her writing career where she was settling in her voice. And those cracks, to be clear, I think add value to Tamara Pierce's overall world and crafting because she and her readership have grown from them. And back to Daine and Numair. Daine is a strong-willed, strong-voiced main character who operates on powerful survival instincts. She has a magical connection to animals that allows her to heal them or shapeshift to familiar animal forms. She is not stupid or dumb, but if she doesn't care to try or see the value in something, she will refuse to connect the dots on anything until the plot or someone forces her to, and sometimes even then she will argue the point. Daine trusts and loves Numair, and so that is how the narrative reads Numair. Numair is a liar. The kind of liar who will tell you he is a liar in a way that's charming and amusing. Daine doesn't see Numair as a liar, which I have determined is where my cognitive dissonance comes through when I read Numair. In regards to their romance, I am back in the phase where I accept it despite my need to squint through it. I accept it because it does make sense from Daine's point of view, and even somewhat objectively. The qualm remains from the student-teacher dynamic, and Tamara Pierce had the grace and wit to be clear within the text, through Numair himself, that he was aware that it wasn't really okay. Daine, at the beginning of Wild Magic, was coming from loss, devastating trauma, displacement, and fear. Numair was instrumental in helping her find her feet in life and with her powers. He is never grossed out or overwhelmed by her power or the animal leavings that often result from it, whereas many people are unnerved by Daine. She doesn't really consider herself respectable, but she never thinks she isn't good enough, and Numair would never lead her to think that she wasn't. The moment that he kisses her, he tries to point her away from him, but instead she busts through his deflection. The fact that they balance and trust each other is properly established by the overall narrative, even if very little else about Numair is. So a reminder that this theory is solely drawn from the materials of The Immortals, which was essentially all we readers had to go on for 20 years. Let's go over Numair's verifiable background. He's from a cloth merchant family in Tyra. He studied at the university in Carthage. He was best friends with the future Emperor Ozorn. He achieved his black robe credential while he was there. He left behind a lover, Varys, when he fled Carthage and the charge of treason. Why he left, what led to the charge of treason, remains unknown. The closest reason we're given is Numair did not want to belong to Ozorn. He never actually voices objections to Ozorn's policies. He spent an unspecified few years hiding his identity and magical gift and performing street tricks to survive. Somehow around age 23 or 24, he meets Alanna, the king, and Anua, and becomes deeply trusted and very close to all three of them. He's 27 when he meets Daine. He's acclaimed as the most powerful known mage in that part of the world. Those are the facts that we have about Numair Salmalín. The first big issue I have with Numair is the heavy reliance on character witnesses for his introduction. Alanna, Jon, main characters well understood from the first series. Anua, the establishing character for this series. Characters the reader is intended to trust the observations and judgments of, and they relay this to Daine, and so Daine relays that explicit trust and understanding to the reader. The second big issue is that he is a collection of informed attributes. One, his forgetfulness is something that is only narratively given to us through Daine. The only things he is shown to forget are things that are directly plot relevant. If he did not forget to tell Daine something, she would not have done what she did. There are no other minor instances to actually demonstrate his forgetful behavior. His characterization is contradictory. He is presented as someone who could potentially walk away from the middle of a conversation at a party because he was distracted by his thoughts or the stars, but never does anything like that within the story. He is always charming and attentive in social situations and never diverts to esoteric or seemingly uninteresting minutiae. And then number three, his academic rambles are implied and absolutely a missed opportunity in the world building. We're told that he will go off on long lists and tangents given an opportunity, but his opportunities are cut short to provide limited necessary information. I assume earlier drafts included these longer diversions, but the revision and page-limited final result brought them down to narrative summary. A paragraph in one or two or each of the books would have been a dual opportunity to illustrate how Numair talks when given the uninterrupted space to do so, what he chooses to talk about, what vocabulary he dresses it in, and a genuine in-world opportunity to info dump. Daine could get glaze-eyed the same as the disinterested reader who would skim until you get rewarded in the reread when the information was buried in the teacher's ramble all along. For me, Numair makes sense if you realize he's a liar. Presumably, he really was awkward as a youth. Somewhere on the streets or along the way, he learned to read and to lead or mislead people. The character on the page is never flustered, never out of his depth, never rude, never impatient. He loses his temper only when Daine's life or someone else's is directly threatened or in actual immediate danger. The instance where he expressed slightly inappropriate menace towards another younger man is really only inappropriate because of Numair's lack of self-awareness about his own interest. If the romance was nixed from book 4, Numair's behavior in book 3 is fairly well justified by the risk and results of that story, in my opinion. I will talk about that moment in the deeper dissection later. The only things you can accept as true for Numair are his actions on the page, the reactions he has for Daine, and the plot necessary information that he spouts. Consider this. Numair states that he was practically useless before he lived in Tortall, and asserts that that is how he will be perceived by those who knew him in the past. He is essentially proven correct by the failed counteractions and behaviors of those characters. And yet, Numair also takes action and makes plans with these past adversaries as if it's not possible they have changed. They think, reason, and react the way he anticipates. The narrative proves him correct. So why is Numair supposedly capable of change, but his adversaries are not? Remember who else tricked everyone into thinking he was stupid for 8 years? Alanna's twin brother Tom. I think Numair learned to use personas and to deceive in his time on the streets if he wasn't already doing that in school. Sleight of hand is a hobby for him these days. Numair knows how to be what is comfortable for those around him. He's powerful, dangerously so. So it's safer for people to consider him inattentive and a little bit silly rather than be wary around him. This is demonstrated early in Wild Magic with the hair tie scene, where Numair puts himself in the position to need assistance and advice from 13-year-old Daine to help her become more comfortable with him and with Anua, and this is underlined for the reader when he throws a wink to Anua at the end of the sequence. Numair is very, very large, so that's an additional factor in his deliberate disarming charm, giving the extra oomph in the fuck around, find out, switch up when the air starts shivering with the magic gathering around him. I'd like to offer an example of Numair lying to Daine's face in the third book that highlights why the facets he presents can't be assumed truthful. In this world, simulacrum are essentially clones, replicas of a person. Various characters have various abilities to create replicas of themselves. Numair uniquely has the ability to attach a seeming of his magical gift to his simulacrum. In Emperor Mage, the third book, there are 2 simulacrum from Numair. The first one he uses to sneak out of the palace where he's supposed to stay to get to the university. Daine encounters him there, and he tells Daine that she doesn't conceal secrets. She doesn't conceal her unease with secrets very well, so we didn't tell her, and she is accepting of that. She's not interested in secrets. The second simulacrum was almost intentionally designed to be caught and potentially executed by Ozorn, and Numair lies that he forgot to tell Daine, his trusted student, about this powerful artifact he spent weeks crafting in secrecy and shipped from Tortal to Tyra to Carthag ahead of their diplomatic delegation. Daine chooses to accept this lie because it quote-unquote makes more sense than it didn't, unquote, and really, she's just happy he's not actually dead. To be fair to Numair, I don't think he ever meant for her to experience losing him like that, but it was more comfortable for her to believe he forgot to tell her than that he chose to keep a secret because she can't conceal secrets well. He told her, and Tamara told us that already. I think most of what character Numair suffers from was this condensed page space in revision, and my hope is that Tempest and Slaughter restore some of that for him. So why do I think his love for Daine is true and not manipulation or grooming? The only time the narrative puts the reader in Numair's point of view is for about 2 lines in the 4th book to show the moment he realized, at a minimum, he was interested. So we can judge from where it begins with his awareness, his potential desire. Before that, he emphasized the unimpeachable bond of student and teacher, and because Daine never second-guesses Numair, her privileged trust is genuine, and he honors that. From the point he realizes his truth, he does nothing to attract or draw her attention to him as a man, and takes no advantage in the fact her shapeshifting results in nudity when she changes back to human. It's only after he thought she died that he gave in to impulse and kisses her, and immediately tries to diffuse that and doesn't admit that he actually loves her until Daine says it for him. I think if it was a lie, he would have said it to lead her to it. But by trying to repress and control it, it becomes a thing among the true things that he doesn't admit or reveal, like that he actually notices and recalls everything, or that he carries as much grief and trauma as he does. Consider where his life has brought him. How did Numair go from the best friend to the future emperor of Carthag, to an incognito street performer, to a close friend and advisor to the king of Tortal, with no ambition that we know of, no motive that is made clear to us, no evidence of espionage, no pre-existing relation or connection, as a boy who was supposedly forgetful and inattentive, as a man who apparently was distractible and galaxy-brained? If he did not want proximity to power, then he failed up hard twice, or he's a liar who also has powerful magic. Now to read Tempest and Slaughter to see if I'm on the right track. Thank you again for being here and for giving my theory a listen. If you are a fan of Numair, I would like to read your comments on the points in his favor. If you want to catch my deeper dissection when I post it, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, let the algorithm know, and I'll see you next time.